Thanks everybody for being here. It's good to see everybody. Thanks for getting us out of the draft room. It feels like we've been in there forever. First, I just want to say congratulations to Jack and Demo for winning the Brian Piccolo Award. We all know what Brian meant to this organization and still means to this organization, so winning that is a tremendous honor, and just want to make sure that we congratulate them. First, I just want to say thank you to our scouts. You've heard us say countless times, these guys are on the road, countless hours, a lot of time spent away from their families. So just want to make sure that we thank them and their families for all the sacrifice in which they mean to us and what they do for us. Also, I'd like to thank our coaches. Really, the process with them really started during the All-Star circuit and the Combine. I thought Trey, Koziel, and Breck did a phenomenal job in terms of setting the table for those guys. And really having them in the process has been fun. Just hearing their evaluations and what they think about the players in the scheme. It's really a collaborative approach, and that's really spearheaded by Ryan and Flu. So just want to make sure I thank the coaches as well. Our scouting assistants, Jake Ponigvar, Ryan Weiss, Keith Earl, these guys put countless hours in. They're selfless. A lot of these guys, a lot of us were actually in their roles, so we know what that's like. And they do a really good job of just helping all of us be the best that we can be. Also, Ashton Washington, our scouting coordinator, she's really like the central nervous system for our scouting crew. Everything kind of flows through her. She keeps us organized. So I just want to make sure we thank her as well. Oftentimes I feel like you think it's just the coaches and the personnel staff, but it really does take a village to get this thing up and going. So I want to make sure to hit on a few more people, especially in strength and conditioning and sports science with Brent Salazar, AJ Lamb, Jim Arthur, the crew down there. When guys come in, we have them go through certain things, and I think they provide really good context in terms of helping us understand some of the data in which we receive. I want to make sure we touch on Dre, his staff with Tim, our trainers, our medical staff, our doctors, obviously providing the context in terms of helping us understand some of the medical information in which we receive. Also, Carla, Mike, Erica, Isaiah, Tarpey, we ask them to do a lot of work as well, and the work in which they give us help us make the ultimate decision of some of the character concerns or things like that. Last but not least, our video crew and our IT and analytics. Those guys are wizards with the keyboard, man. Like they help us with the simulations that we do, a lot of the mocks that we do. We can put things up in real time, and those guys are really good with that. So with that, I'll open up for questions, preferably some softball ones.
That's actually what I have.
Let's go.
Yeah, that's my specialty. I am curious what is running better for you guys in draft number 2, and I'm sure you would say big picture that there have been improvements, things are smoother and better, but can you point to some specific parts of your draft process that are clicking better than they did the first draft?
Yeah, I feel like it's just really time on the job, right? Now that we have a feel for a coaching staff, their fit, their vision, their roles of the scheme, the relationships that we have with those guys, we've communicated a lot better, I feel like, just in terms of just natural time on the job, time spent with each other. So you get a better feel for them and what they're looking for, which helps us and helps our scouts when they're on the road evaluating these players and trying to get the players right for them.
Ian, as someone who's been part of this process many times in multiple buildings, how do you describe sort of the exhilaration of the 46 hours of the draft, going from Thursday night to Saturday evening, and what it's like for a personnel guy to just kind of surf that?
Yeah, trying to find calmness through chaos. A little bit is just relax. The cool thing is now that we've been together and we spend so much time together as a staff, you kind of get to know everybody, and some guys you kind of poke to kind of lighten the mood. I think I'm the one that's probably with the stern face, and those guys are trying to poke me. So, yeah, it's just learning each other and just feeling each other out.
I don't know if you guys have expressed this yet, if Ryan Poles has said this, but if you guys stay at 9, are you guys subscribing to the best player available theory, or because you guys still do have so many needs that you address those?
Yeah, I think that's what we always do is try to take that best player available approach. I think the whole needs thing kind of, it's funny, Ryan and I were having this conversation earlier. It's like those needs kind of get ironed out through the whole process, but ultimately it's the best player available. I think when you get into day 3 and you kind of look at the board horizontally and you see some positions are maybe a little bit more robust than others. And I think that's where you kind of have to finesse it a little bit in terms of say, all right, this stack, you don't want to take somebody way down the board versus somebody higher, but when you kind of look at it horizontally, it helps with some of that decision making.
Ian, I understand that you've been in the weeds on this for months now, but can you step back and appreciate what a big draft this is for the Bears? You know, Ryan Poles has his first ever first-round pick here. He's got the number 1 overall. He trades out of it. You know, both for him, who you've known for a long time, and the front office is going to be evaluated for years by kind of what they do in the next couple of days, right?
Right, but I kind of look at it as like pressure's a privilege. Like you don't really look, at least for us, I think you just look at it as just this is a draft. We're excited about it, and you try to keep yourself in the moment and stay in the moment. But we try not to put much more pressure on it than it really needs to be.
Go back to the needs versus. How many players do you have in that? How many players do you have in that first cluster of players, that top tier group where you guys would feel great value in, say, like number 9? How many guys are in that group?
I'd say anywhere from 6 to 8, somewhere in there.
Is that 6 to 8 with first round grades?
Yeah, we don't really grade with first round. We grade kind of role and what their role is going to be for us and within their specific position. So we don't grade for rounds.
How does Jalen Carter project in terms of Matt Eberflus's his principal?
Yeah, I think Jalen's a really good player. I mean, there's no denying the talent. You turn on the tape a couple years ago with that when they first won the national championship and they had all those defensive linemen on the field. You couldn't help but notice 88, and then knowing that he's going to be in next year's class, and then you turn on the tape this year and you see a lot of the same flashes while he's been playing through things. So I think he's one of those players that you really covet just in terms of being one of the better defensive tackles in this class.
When you bring a player in for a visit, what is the process here? How long are they here? If you can just kind of walk us through what day of bringing a prospect here ahead of the draft.
Yeah, we try to 24 hours. We'll put them through different things, but a lot of it is really just us getting to know them. We get them with as many people on our football operations and support staff as possible, just so that these are the people that are going to be, dealing with them every single day. And we care, and Ryan cares a lot, and Flus cares a lot about what they think, because they're the ones that are going to be coaching them or with them in the weight room or with them with player engagement, those sorts of things. So, we have dinner with them. We get to know them a little bit better. The whole day is about 24 hours.
When you guys visited with Jalen Carter.
Jalen Carter's reputation is that he's not a hits principal guy. How does that affect your evaluation of him as a fit for this defense?
Yeah, I think Jalen Carter, when you watch him on the field, like he's active, he plays hard, he's physical. I think you can turn on the tape and watch, a number of plays where he shows physicality and toughness and those sorts of things.
So he is. You consider him a hits principal guy?
I think that for me personally, I think he fits some of those. Yeah.
Did you come away from
From your visit with him, comfortable with bringing him into the organization?
Yeah, I think for me personally, I think just spending more time with him and really just getting to know him. We were able to be there with him, and our first conversation was, I think, at the Combine. The second time was at his pro day. I think the more time you spend around him, the more you realize that, he's a good player, but you get to know him more as a person. I think ultimately where we feel we've made the best decision for us and our organization.
How can you tell when a guy like that is kind of faking it and just putting on a show? What kind of intuition do you have to have about people?
I know
When they're being truthful.
Yeah, I majored in psychology, but I didn't get a master's or a PhD. That's a tough question.
As the weeks have gone by, how do you guys feel about the trade that you made in terms of maximizing the value of that number 1 pick? Is there a world where you would have gotten more had you sat on it for a couple of weeks?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if there is a world we would have gotten more, but I think, the value in which we were able to accomplish at that time, I felt was really good.
Yeah, what do you value most in an offensive tackle prospect, whether it's traits or things that you're attracted to in that position?
Yeah, I think first you can say the size and athleticism, and how his competitive spirit, how he plays down in, down out. I think growing up in Baltimore, we had some really good players there and really good tackles. That's kind of where I cut my teeth and kind of learned how to evaluate. And a lot of those guys, which we played with there, were kind of cut from that similar cloth.
When you look at this draft at that position, what is your assessment of kind of the day one group, and then what's after that as you kind of navigate that a little bit?
Yeah, I think this is actually, that's a really good question. I feel like the day one group, all the household names everybody knows, there's a lot of, this guy can play left tackle, this guy can play right tackle. There's players that have played both left tackle and right tackle. There's players that have played also inside. And then there's players that you kind of project inside, or they can play outside. But then if you trickle down, I think you get a lot of that similar skill set, but maybe not the top tier athleticism. But you feel comfortable with it. We were able to take Braxton last year, right, in the fifth. And when you have a guy like Chris Morgan, who I think is one of the better offensive line coaches in the league, and one of the best teachers in the league at the position, you feel comfortable with, some of those guys.
You've gone through some of the scenarios, and I'm sure at 9, what if all 4 offensive linemen are there? How have those played out in, your guys' simulations on stuff and what you might do?
Yeah, I think that's what we're still working through. We're always kind of using as many scenarios as we can. You try to put yourself in the worst case position, and what that looks like. I feel like we feel comfortable with the decisions in which we'll ultimately make by putting ourselves in the worst case situation. But again, we'll have to wait till Thursday to see.
Back to the offensive tackles, you mentioned Braxton. I think historically and statistically, offensive tackle is one of those positions where the best guys go in the top 15 or the first round. Yeah. You've had success with Braxton, and obviously in Philadelphia, they've had a really successful guy they found late. How do you balance that with if there's somebody there at 9 and then the trust you have in Chris Morgan versus maybe taking a bit more of a shot on a guy later?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that would preclude us from taking a shot on a guy later if we took a guy early either, I think you just kind of weigh where you're at on the board and where, other players are on the board, and you kind of have those internal discussions, and we've had some of those internal discussions already.
Ian, kind of along the lines of Courtney's question, what are the conversations and considerations of trading farther back from 9? Is that something that would be in play, or what are the conversations there, I guess?
Yeah, I think that's kind of case by case too. I think when you're looking at the board, you got to have a feel for what those team needs are. Our pro staff, led by Jeff King and Chris White, along with JJ and Charles Love, they've done a really good job of helping us understand some of those team needs. And you kind of have to weigh where we have guys versus what other team needs are, and kind of figure out how far we would want to trade back.
Would trading back be preferable in terms of getting some spots between that 9 and 53? Would trading back be preferable to moving up from 53?
From 53 moving up, you're talking about day 2?
Yeah, I'm trying to just be in between that 9 and 53. That's a huge
Yeah,
gap.
it's like 44 players.
Move back to try and get into that space, or move up to try and get into
That's something that we'll revisit after day 1 and kind of see where the dust settles. We'll probably meet after the draft that night, and then we'll come back in on Tuesday or on Friday, and meet again and kind of see where the board is, and we'll make those decisions then.
Where would you start to target guy? Like you see a guy that you guys maybe had a first round grade on, and you see him kind of slide down that board. At what area will you start to say he's in range? That like early 40s, that late 30s? Where would you start to think that maybe we should pull the trigger?
Really good question. I think we'll talk more about that on day 2, depending upon what we decide to do day 1.
In the modern NFL, do you believe that it's possible for running back to be worth a top 10 pick?
That's a really good question. Yeah, I think it's worth it. Yeah.
Based on the value of quarterbacks and how teams, might want to move up for one, do you think that would be the route for you guys at 9, if there is one that falls? That would probably be what would be the catalyst behind it, you finding a trade partner to trade back?
Yeah, I think that's important because you really don't know who's going to be there. At least we don't right now. And then you don't know which teams are going to want to trade up and who wants to trade up. So we kind of have to weigh that versus where we're sitting there at 9, if there's a player on the board that we really feel comfortable taking.
Ian, you and Ryan Poole both have backgrounds as offensive linemen. When you're looking at possibly an offensive tackle at number 9 overall, how does that background help you guys in getting the right guy, especially when everything seems so scheme specific here?
Yeah, I feel like it's just our evaluation. Obviously, playing the position helps just in terms of, what's asked of those guys. And I feel like, again, when you have a guy like Chris Morgan and you have the confidence in him and his development of players, you feel comfortable taking a player that that has some upside because he's going to get the most out of him.
The Chiefs drafted Creed Humphrey when Ryan was there, and he's been a big hit for them. Do you have an example in your background of a guy you really either pounded the table for, really believed in, who, was just an astute judgment of an offensive lineman?
I think the proof is in the pudding just in terms of some of the places in which we've been or I've been. We had some pretty good offensive linemen. In Philly, I think we were able to draft Landon Dickerson and Jordan Mailata, Jack Driscoll. I think there's one other, but we had some pretty good offensive linemen. But in all reality, Stout is a heck of an offensive line coach. So this is not our doing; it's really Stout.